Ottawa and Washington are giving drastically different accounts of a phone call between the president and the prime minister. On Monday, the U.S. Treasury Secretary says Mark Carney reversed course to Donald Trump on his speech about a fractured world order.
I was in the Oval with the president today. He spoke to Prime Minister Carney, who was very aggressively walking back some of the unfortunate remarks he made at Davos. And Sean, I'm not sure what the Prime Minister was thinking.
Well, according to Mark Carney's version of events, he used the call with Donald Trump to double down on his Davos message.
I explained to him our arrangement with China. I explained to him what we're doing, 12 new deals on 4 continents in 6 months. He was impressed. And that what we intend to do going forward. But to be absolutely clear, and I said this to the president, I meant what I said in Davos. It was clear, it was a broader set of issues, that Canada was the first country to understand the change in U.S. trade policy that he had initiated, and we're responding to that.
Joining me now is David MacNaughton. He was Canadian ambassador to the United States during Trump's first administration. David MacNaughton, always good to see you. Thank you for being here, sir.
Oh, no problem at all.
How do you parse this? I mean, we had Trump threaten 100% tariffs if Canada makes a deal with China. Seemingly, that means a full free trade deal would be the issue. But these very different accounts of what happened in that call, what's your read of it all?
Well, I suspect that, the Treasury Secretary is accurately reflecting what he heard from the president. And I suspect that the Prime Minister is accurately reflecting what he said to the president. I think it's, to my mind, it wasn't so much probably what the Prime Minister said in Davos as much as when he was finished, he got a standing ovation. And when the president was there and he finished his speech, it was not exactly what I would describe as a standing ovation or a warm response. And so that always causes Mr. Trump some problems, and so I suspect that's part of it. I don't doubt that there is some aggravation about what the Prime Minister said, but so much of what the president's about is how others react, and I think the standing ovation probably drove him crazy.
Well, the standing ovation, the headlines around the world, other leaders then going on the stage, like Chancellor Merz of Germany and the Australian finance minister saying they agree with Carney and with Canada, right? These are the sort of challenges. But, the Treasury Secretary apparently listened in on the call in the Oval Office. And I don't know if he's interpreting the explanation of not a free trade deal with China, because that would run into a foul with CUSMA, as you well know. Yeah. But really just the settling of some trade irritants. I mean, could it be a conflation of that? I mean, it's hard to know with this particular administration.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I think one of the things that I've, continuously said ever since, the president won a year ago or so, is we just, we shouldn't panic. We shouldn't spook. We shouldn't react to everything that's said in Washington. I think that obviously we have a very difficult review of the CUSMA arrangement. It isn't a sunset clause or a renegotiation. It was intended to be a check-in to make sure that everybody's living up to the agreement that we made, and to obviously be prepared to make any modifications in light of new technologies or new events. I think that, the Prime Minister's clearly said that he wants to diversify our trade, and I think there's a lot of support for that. Nonetheless, no matter what happens, we're still going to have, well over 50% of our exports going to the United States for some time to come. I mean, it's, what is it, 80% now? Maybe if our exports to the rest of the world double, it'll be 65 or 60% or something. But we still need to have a very substantial and constructive relationship with the United States, and I think that's what the important thing over the next several months is going to be. for the prime minister and his team. And I think they're capable of it. I think he's. I know from what I've heard from people in Washington that the president does respect the prime minister, and I think that goes quite a ways to help things get smoothed over, shall we say. But there'll be lots of bumps. It's not going to be easy.
No, I take your point. I take your point on not overreacting to everything that's sort of posted and said. I mean, these 100% China tariffs will come on right after the 10% Reagan ad tariffs, which never materialized, right? So there have been these sort of empty threats. But there is, it fuels the uncertainty. It fuels the disruption. The prime minister suggested some of this could be a tactic for that USMCA CUSMA review that's going on. Do you see an overarching strategy in what is coming out of Washington, or do you just see more of the rhythm and flow of a sort of a Trump White House and a social media account?
Overarching strategy and this particular president, it's an oxymoron. I think it, he reacts. I mean, he has an overall view, and he's had it for a long time, that tariffs are a good thing. He uses tariffs and threat of tariffs as a negotiating tactic. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of American jobs that depend on making the relationship with Canada as constructive as possible. And I think what we need to be thinking about is how do we, talk to those American businesses, the governors and others, about how important Canada is to keeping stability and prosperity in the United States. And as the president comes up closer to the midterms, I think those kinds of inputs are going to be more and more important. So we just had, as I say, we just keep our cool. I think, frankly, the less public negotiation that goes on, the better from now until we actually go through the review process. I just don't think it's particularly helpful to do too much negotiating in public with the president. So, but I think we'll see what happens. I think that the prime minister's smart enough, and I think he's got a good team around him, and hopefully that we can remove some of the uncertainty that exists at the present moment that is causing people to wonder about making investments and things like that.
You say the less public negotiation, the better. I don't know if there's any kind of negotiation happening right now. I know there's still some conversations, and the review is going through, and the USTR has done his hearings, and the report has been done. Where do you slot the Davos speech into that? Because the prime minister is getting some criticism from conservatives in particular that the speech was a thumb in the eye of the president and provoking the largest trading partner. And the supporters of the prime minister say he was pulling together all the threads of an unraveling world and putting out a narrative outlining a path for middle powers. How does a speech like that at a time like this fit into the negotiation matrix in dealing with Donald Trump?
Well, a couple of things. One of them is I'm shocked that the conservatives would be critical of the prime minister. That would be really surprised to me. But I do think the prime minister wanted to convey at Davos what we are intending to do with with the rest of the world and the changed circumstances. I think he described it well. I think from now until July or whenever it is that we end up coming to some agreement or not about continuation of the existing framework of the USMCA, I think it's better to keep the public rhetoric down as much as possible. I mean, I think the other thing is too that we are going to, and the prime minister's committed to spend significant amounts on defense. And I think one of the things that we need to convince the Americans of and convince the president of is that we are taking the defense of North America seriously. That involves the Arctic. It also involves, he likes to say he doesn't need anything from Canada. Well, you know what? There are a lot of Americans crawling all over Canada trying to secure contracts for critical minerals. We still export a lot of oil and natural gas to the United States. So, I think hopefully in the next short while, things will calm down and we'll be able to have a private negotiation for the next several months that will result in eliminating some of the uncertainty, and also I think allow the president to declare some sort of victory about how Canada is finally stepping up to help defend the Arctic and North America and all that kind of stuff. I mean, the fact of the matter is we are going to spend an awful lot more. We needed to. We haven't been pulling our weight as much as possible, and so I think there's a way to make this happen. But as I say, I would not from this day forward. I think the best thing to do is just to do the negotiation in private, because I don't think. You're going to have the president's going to continue to talk a lot, but we don't need to respond to it.
But do you think Davos was a mistake then, or do you think it was fine? And because the reaction to the president is driven a lot by media coverage and what he sees on U.S. television, it seems, right? And
that's correct.
Yeah, that's a big motivator for the guy, it seems. But does that mean you think it was a mistake to do what Mark Carney did, or do you think it was totally fine?
No, I think the prime minister. I think his speech, excuse me, was good.
Mm-hmm.
I think the president's reaction to it was very negative, but those things don't usually last for a whole long time. But as I say, I think it was a good speech, and I think from now on we should just, take it as read and then just go and not negotiate in public.
So one last quick question. In terms of, I mean, who knows if this gets resolved in a way that Canada is happy with or gets resolved at all. Is the forum where it gets done? Do you think it's going to be through that more formal process as outlined under CUSMA with the review and then wherever the talks go? Or is it going to be this Mark Carney to Donald Trump pipeline that seems to exist through text and phone calls that we never hear about until someone talks about it on U.S. media? Like, which path do you think is the one that gets this done?
It's going to be both. As I say, I think that the way to get Donald Trump into a mode that he wants to finalize, a constructive review and extend the agreement through to 2036 is to have a whole lot of U.S. interests put pressure on the White House to do something, because otherwise, the uncertainty will continue, that prices are going to go up, and that it will cause all sorts of problems. So I think we do the backdoor, discussing with American business and American politicians, and just remind them of the importance of Canada. And then, I think at some point there'll be an opportunity for the president and the prime minister to sit down and actually work something out. I think, Jameson Greer is a good guy, but I don't think he exactly knows what the president wants. I don't think, as long as somebody finds somewhere to put Peter Navarro for a couple of months, we'll probably make some progress.
Yeah, order up an oubliette for that particular official.
Exactly.
David MacNaughton, former ambassador to the United States. We always appreciate the time. Thank you, sir.
All right, take care.